Okay, in the interest of time and being conscious of everyone's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, First, I wanted to thank the committee that worked on this project. Um, so I wanted to thank Dean Kelpinen, Mary Roddy, Tatiana Hurtado Frake, who's no longer with the university, but still say a special thanks to her as well. Peggy Sliger, who's with SEAC group, and also Dave Sirkowski, and then also the Office of Continuous Improvement, who's been working along with the HR department to help get this project started and out to employees. So I just wanted to thank all of those people who've done a great deal of work and spent a ton of hours to get this out to employees. So thank you to all of those individuals who worked tirelessly on this project. And so just so everyone knows, this part of the presentation is being recorded. You might have saw that come across the screen. So if you don't want to be recorded, or some of your questions anyway, please know that you are. So why do we do performance evaluations? Mostly performance evaluations are done just to promote communication for employees and supervisors. Traditionally, they're done once a year, but our goals here are to hopefully open up communication through with supervisors and employees. Um, let's see, Christy, if you can, I'm sorry, I'm getting comments that some of the employees can't get into the Zoom link, so you can send or resend that out, sorry. I think that was Alyssa who couldn't get into that. Oh, she just got in. um, so, sorry, where was I? So hopefully we would like to make sure that by doing the performance evaluations that it opens up communication with employees and supervisors so that they're able to have a conversation more than just this one time a year, and that conversation is easier and they don't have just that one conversation about performance, and also that the employees' development, growth, and impact on the organization is developed also. And so also what we're going to talk about today is how we complete the new performance evaluation. We're going to go through some do's and don'ts of a good performance evaluation. And also Christy has also posted the instruction guide in the chat for the new performance evaluation. And it's also posted on the HR website as well for convenience. So what we have here is with our new performance evaluation, the way it will work is that employees will basically complete their own self-evaluations, and starting July 1st, employees will complete their own self-evaluations. You'll have up until August to do that. At that point, and you'll do that electronically. And then after that, the supervisors will then go into the system And then the supervisor will then review what the employee has submitted, and then they will prepare based on what the employee has submitted their own evaluation. And then they will prepare based on that evaluation, the supervisor's evaluation. They will prepare for a one-on-one conversation to go over their final evaluation. And then finally, the supervisor, after that one-on-one conversation takes place, then they will submit then to HR the final version of the performance evaluation. So there'll be two evaluations that are completed. There'll be the employee self-evaluation and then the final evaluation, which is the supervisor's final evaluation that's there. And then we'll talk about what those evaluations look like in just a moment. Okay, so how to complete the performance evaluation tool. So as I mentioned, the employees will have a portion to complete, and then the supervisors will also have a portion to complete. So first, we're going to talk about the employees portion that will be completed. So employees will have, and it's essentially the same form, but employees will first complete their portion of the employee evaluation. And to do that, what we want to make sure that employees do is in your portion, we want to make sure that you show initiative, and this is in your conversation with your supervisor. You actively listen, ask questions. This is your chance to ask any questions that you have. Document your goals. I see I'm getting a question here. It's not coming up for me. A second.
The question is, will these slides be available to us later?
Thank you, Christy. Yes, they will be posted on the HR website. Thank you.
And then I also see at the bottom that Mary Roddy has her hand raised.
Are you able to?
We can't unmute them, so I would ask, instead of raising their hand, if they want to put their questions in the Q&A. And I see that Mary Roddy just let us know that her hand raised was an accident.
Oh, okay. Thank you. For supervisors, we do want to make sure that they do SMART goals, and also make sure to establish clear expectations and be prepared for one-on-one conversations, and make sure that they strike a balance between the critical and the positive. You don't want to focus, I'm sure there are things that you want to make sure that you tackle any performance issues, of course, if there are any, but you don't want to focus on any, stay on any one thing, and you don't want to certainly focus on what we would call like a halo effect. So you don't want to stay on just one good thing or recency bias, whether that's a good or a bad thing. So the most recent thing that has happened with an employee or any, and you want to make sure you offer any potential solutions for any issues that certainly exist. And you want to make sure that you find ways to motivate your employees and follow up as much as possible.
Deandra, you did have another question, but you're about to answer it. They were asking what are SMART goals?
Oh, certainly. So SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So you want to make sure that your goals are specific to your department, that they are measurable, and they're relevant to your department, and that they're reachable, um, and that they have a time frame attached to them. You don't want them too far in the future. You want to make sure that all of your goals are very specific, and I would say you want to make sure that you attach, something that I wouldn't say too far out of a month. If you can tie it down to that, 1 or 2 months is, I would say, ideal. And I would say at least 1 to 2 goals would be preferable. But if you can get more, at least more than that, that's ideal. And this is the first phase of your performance review that you'll be tackling. And this is for the future. So that's the first phase that you'll get through. This is for the future. So this is the academic year 21-22 that you'll be setting these goals for. The next piece of the performance appraisal is phase 2. And this is the performance dimensions, which is job knowledge, decision-making, problem-solving, service, relationships and congeniality, communications, adaptability, creativity, continuous improvement, management and change, and accountability. I would say for the most part, each and every job at Valco has some form that you can rate your job on. It's going to be maybe a rare exception that your job doesn't have this. However, if that is the case, then you'll see on the form where it has not applicable, but for the most part, I think everyone should be able to find that these areas you should be able to find somewhere where your job is affected in some shape or form in these areas. So the rating system goes from a 5 to a 1, 5 being called VU exemplary employee and a 1 corrective action. I want to point out here that this is not an A to an A to F system. And the full definitions of this will be found in the instruction sheet. But this, where most of us want to come in at, is where you see 3 achieving. That means that you are doing well at your job, you're fulfilling your duties, you're performing well, as it says, you fulfill your core responsibility, you're making a solid impact, you're achieving your goals. So that would not equate to a C. I know many of us naturally would just assume that that's where that would fall, but it's not. There are going to be areas where you excel in some areas or you're exemplary in others. But this is, I don't want everyone to think that achieving means you're average. That's not what that means. Achieving, like I said, means that you're performing, you're doing well at your job. That's the level that we want to be at. But like I said, there are naturally areas where we're going to be excelling in some areas, um, and maybe in some areas where development is needed. Also, I do want to point out that in areas where you, as supervisors, if you mark someone as either corrective action is needed or VU exemplary employee is needed, then you do need to make sure that you put examples or additional comments for that to provide further explanation. And for phase 3, this section is for a review of the previous goals. So for the last academic year or the current year that we're in this section. So this would be for this previous academic year or the year that we're currently in. So for the academic year 2021, this is where you want to think about goals that you have met currently. And you want to review the goals that you've currently met. Take some time out to review how you met those goals and rate yourself utilizing that previous scale, the exemplary to corrective action, and rate yourself on the employee rating. You can give a time frame for whether you met those goals, if you did it within whatever allotted time, if you had an allotted time. And this may be a little bit difficult for this current year, only because you may or may not have, I'm not sure if everyone has had a similar format to this performance evaluation, but hopefully everyone has did some form of a performance review and has some goals in mind. But and also just over the last events of the previous year, goals may have changed significantly, but hopefully everyone could come up with at least 1 to 2 goals that they did at least meet, and give a little bit of a narrative of goals that they met and what that time frame was, and give a rating for themselves or for their supervisor to rate. Any questions? And again, you'll have to put them in the chat. I can't see any, or the talk function is not on, so I won't be able to unmute anyone. So you'll have to put any questions in the chat.
We got a question, Deandra. It is, are performance evaluations tied to merit increases?
I would say not necessarily. We will be doing performance evaluations from here on out. Um, so whether we get merit increases or not, we'll be doing performance, or I should say, whether the board approves merit increases or not, we'll be doing performance evaluations every year going forward. And hopefully, the goal is to make sure that it increases communication with supervisors and helps develop those relationships, is what the ultimate goal is. So we don't want to necessarily tie it to merit. Obviously, it's nice to get merit, but we don't want to tie those two things together per se.
All right, we have two more questions. The first one is, what happens if performance evaluations are not completed?
Well, we do want everyone to complete them, so we'll be tracking to make sure that our employees do them and that your supervisors do one for you.
And the next question is, where do we access the evaluation?
So we'll be sending a link out starting July 1st is when that link will be available for the self-evaluation. And then shortly after that is when the supervisors will be, once the employee does theirs, that's after that, then your supervisors will begin to do theirs.
And I guess if we want to add that it will be an electronic form, it won't be a paper form.
Right.
And we have another question. If we haven't had an evaluation in a while, how do we review the goals? So we just set new goals?
Well, if you haven't had an actual evaluation, hopefully you can still come up with some goals that you still accomplished last year. So that's why I said it still may be difficult for you to maybe come up with some goals, and last year was difficult for all of us, but still, hopefully you can come up with something from your department that you still accomplished last year, even without that physical form of an evaluation from your supervisor. But I'm sure there were still things that you accomplished within your department where you can, if you think about it, that there were things that you were able to accomplish and utilize those things. For this year, that's why we're saying maybe just one or two goals.
We got a couple more questions. How will the supervisors access the self-evals for their employees?
So once you complete it on the self-evaluation, you will select your supervisor's email, and so it will be emailed to them. And it's an electronic form, as Christy mentioned. So it will be emailed to your supervisor. And once that's completed to them, then they will do their evaluation for you. So it's all electronic this time around.
Is this for student employees as well?
No, this is just for staff.
Okay. And the next question, could you clarify what the supervisor does with the employee self-evaluation? What is the supervisor's final evaluation on the employee after the one-on-one meeting?
So the employee's evaluation, they will review the employee's evaluation. So ideally, once the employee does their own evaluation, the supervisor will review that and they will have their own evaluation, the supervisor, on that employee. So they'll review it and then they'll have their own. The idea behind that is that ideally they should look alike. So the employee will have their own, and they can have a copy of it. So you'll have a copy of your own, and the supervisor will have their evaluation as well. But like I said, the idea is that they should be close, is what we hope. Um, because if they're far apart, then that kind of tells us something too, that communication is kind of off somewhere. If you have kind of one view, one rating or one view of your work, and your supervisor has a completely different view of your performance. So the idea is that they should be very similar, and communication should build from there. So you would have one version, and the supervisor's version is the final version, but there'll still be two copies of it. And both will be in a system, and they'll both come to HR.
If you have more than one department, do you have to do one for each department?
If you have more than one supervisor, if you report to more than one person, I would say yes. If you have more than one supervisor, yes.
Is this process beginning in July and ending next July? In other words, if a staff member completes their self-evaluation, are they reflecting back on the 2020-2021 year? Or are we beginning with goals and moving forward so that the first substantive employer supervisor review occurs next summer?
Can you repeat that for me, Chrissy?
Is this process beginning in July and ending next July? In other words, if a staff member completes their self-evaluation, are they reflecting back on the 2020 to 2021 year? Or are we beginning with goals and moving forward?
So it's reflecting back, and you're writing goals for next year as well. So you are, the first part is that you're going to write goals for the next year. And then the next section 2 and 3 is that you're going to reflect backwards over the performance that you did over the last year.
So we have two questions that are actually kind of similar. So do supervisors have the opportunity to review both docs together with the employee, hopefully before submission? How is this possible?
So yes, so the supervisor will, the employee will submit, if I'm understanding correctly, the employee will submit their self-evaluation that's submitted to the supervisor. And then the supervisor will review that in their own self-evaluation with the employee. That's the one-on-one conversation that you all will have. Once that conversation is complete, then the supervisor will finalize their evaluation and submit the completed evaluation to HR. So that's all done electronically. And that both of those documents will then come to HR.
And the next question, which I feel you answered, but it says, so the supervisor's final evaluation is submitted to HR after the one-on-one meeting with the employee.
Yes. And that's electronic, yes.
I guess we may want to add that the supervisor can fill out, after they receive the employees and the supervisor's filling out theirs, they can fill out their review and save it and not submit it yet until after they've met with the employee and they're having that conversation.
Right. And also, I also want to say that the employee also has the ability to, if need be, start their evaluation. And if for some reason they have to start and stop, they have the ability to do that as well. So if you get sidetracked, or if you need to save it at some point, come back, think about it, you have the ability to do that as well.
So you've answered all of the current questions. I don't know if you want to give people a few minutes to submit some more.
Sure. And if, of course, if people have questions at a later point, you can also email us in HR your questions. And I think we mentioned at the beginning that we'll have this up on the HR website, I think at some point. Um, but the evaluation, the employee, the links will not be available until July 1st. That's when the employee self-evaluation will go out, and we'll likely send out an email just to remind everyone, along with the instruction guide as well, just so everyone has that again. But the instruction guide is currently out there right now.
We have not yet received any more questions.
Okay. Right. I think we have a few more training sessions next week. And can sign up for those, or if you know anyone that needs to sign up.
Oh, we got another question.
Oh, okay.
Can we have the list of questions prior to filling out the form so we don't need to stop and save the answers?
You have the list of what questions? I'm not sure I understand.
I think the questions that are going to be on the review, the performance evaluation.
Well, it's electronic, so you'll have, it's electronic, so you'll have to fill it out while you're in there. And it's not very long. It's not lengthy, in my estimation. Any other questions I can answer? think that's it. Great. Well, thank you, everyone.